Welcome, everyone, to another fantastic episode of Double Booked. Tonight's guest has taken one of the warmest, most joyful filled holidays of the year and twisted it into something chilling, sinister, and unforgettable. They are the creator behind The Christmas Demon, a story where survival means staring into the abyss of myth, family, and fear itself. Please join me in welcoming the architect of holiday horror, Mr. J.Z. Pitts. How are you doing today, sir?
Yeah. Well, after that introduction, I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I cannot complain, to be honest with you. I cannot complain. Other than it's getting kind of cold. We actually had to turn the heat on, and yeah, it didn't go very well. Kids were causing sign whatever was going on. Every time I turn the heat on, I feel it causes a big mess inside the house, and the kids don't sleep. So I was not quite happy last night, but it is what it is.
Yes, it is the season. Apparently, we're going to be getting much colder next week.
Ooh. So what's much colder on your neck of the woods?
I heard something about hitting somewhere in the 20s.
Ooh, no, sir.
Yeah,
no, sir. No, see,
gonna
it
be
gets 50s. It gets 50s here, and I'm like, I'm losing it. I'm losing it.
no. We're gonna have to start, turning the tap on, letting it drip, so making sure it doesn't freeze over or anything like that. And I just want to, while I'm talking, to apologize for my voice. I've been dealing with a cold. I'm getting better. I'm on the tail end of this thing, so finally starting to sound human, but it is still a little present.
It happens, man. But I appreciate you jumping on. I do really do. I do want to give you the opportunity to tell you to hear from you about your amazing story. I had so much fun with it. I was giving it a lot of praise before we jumped on. But we have some friends that are on. I want to go through and say hey, and I'm going to give the floor to you to tell everyone about your fantastic story. We have Lucas. Hey, buddy. L.N. Holmes. Good seeing you, friend.
Hey.
And grow your beard out. I'm trying. This is like the most I've grown it out ever. So
it does a good job keeping the face warm.
I'm considering to go more, but I kind of like this. I'm slowly getting there. I'll get comfortable. Yeah. Maybe one day I'll get comfortable with doing something as cool as your beard.
yeah. It's a good way to keep the face warm.
Yeah. So yeah, I want to hear from you, Jay-Z. Do you mind, for those not familiar with your story, before we jump into it? Can you give us a quick elevator pitch on The Christmas Demon?
Yeah, so The Christmas Demon is about family going on a vacation to the Bavarian Alps in Germany, and they get stranded, taken to this mysterious town where they encounter a demon of ancient folklore. And in order to survive, they're going to have to face not only the darkness outside, but also within.
Perfect. I loved it. I love this story.
It
was probably one of my favorite novellas that I've read, and I think I mentioned it during one of my Friday after I went through and read it, how much I love this book. It was so much fun. Had me on the edge of my seats, and we're going to go through and talk a little bit about the book later on in our conversation. Non-spoiler, because I want everyone to go through and read this, but I have some very specific questions on how you came up with some of these crazy ideas. So
yeah,
before we get into the book, I want to hear, I'm always curious on the origin stories of authors. So when did you realize that storytelling was something you wanted to go through and pursue?
Well, I first started writing when I was about 12 or 13 years old, and I was mostly writing stories that were very, very similar to the types of stories I was reading at the time, kind of middle grade boys adventure type stuff. So very much in line with that. But I just kept doing it. I would fill notebook after notebook, and then eventually learned how to type, started filling, a bunch of Word docs and stuff like that. And just went through a brief season in my teens of being frustrated with the written word and kind of falling in love with visual imagery and stuff like that. So for a while there, I tried to pursue filmmaking, but long story short there, that didn't really pan out. So a few years back, probably 6-7 years ago, something like that. I started rethinking what it is I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something a bit more creative, a bit more in the storytelling realm. So decided to try writing again, and sat down and, like I said, about 6-7 years ago, started writing again. And I wrote a novel. It took a few months to complete. Went back and rewrote it, and discovered that it was terrible. There was nothing I could do about it, and decided to, push it to the side. But I had written a novel, and that gave me a huge confidence boost. So I was like, okay, let's see if I could do this again. And so went and wrote Virtual Rebel, which was my debut. And about a year and a half after that, started working on, I think it was a year and a half after that, started working on The Christmas Demon.
So when you were a lad, 12, 13 years old, filling up all these books, what kind of stories were you go through and telling? Were you looking at known stories and be like, I'm going to give this a twist? Or were you thinking of your own creative process? What were you doing when you were
Yeah. It was basically putting my own stamp on stories like the Sugar Creek Gang or the Hardy Boys, stuff like that. I was very much into that type of boys adventure style stuff. And so I would write tons and tons of short stories about, similar situations, and a lot of self-insert characters, and, stuff like that.
We have a question in the chat I'm going to go through and bring up, but we have someone on here that's a legend that we got to say hey to.
All right.
How's it going, Mark? Glad to hear, buddy. But Ellen Holmes has a question for you. So, since you were interested in film, what would you say your writing is cinematic?
Definitely, yes. A lot of my inspirations are inspired by movies or shows. So I'm always thinking of things in terms of cinematic creativity, cinematic visuals, I should say. And so trying to translate that into the written medium is a huge challenge for me, but it's one that I find to be very fun at the same time. How do you turn a very visual style of storytelling into the written word?
Mm-hmm.
It's fun for me.
So from an influence perspective, who would you say is your biggest influence? It could be multiple. It could be in the written word. It could be in other sorts of entertainment. Who influences your style specifically?
Like the type of stories I like to tell?
Correct.
Well, I'm a huge Spielberg fan. I love how he's able to take these kind of B-movie concepts, and yet he brings he's able to elevate the material beyond a simple B story. At least that's what he was known for. Nowadays he does more straight dramas and stuff like that. But back in the day with Jurassic Park, with his War of the Worlds movie, a lot of people talk down on War of the Worlds, but I love that movie. And what was his other alien one that he did in the 70s that he's well known for? Close Encounters of the Third Kind, mm-hmm. Jaws. He's a storytelling force for a reason. So I'd say he's a huge influence. George Lucas is up there too. I don't know if you noticed this, but I'm very influenced by storytellers who tell big, bold, action-driven stories, but is still able to communicate a sense of heart to their stories. And that's something that I try to bring in my storytelling, is I like to do these big set pieces, these big concept ideas, yet at the same time, I try not to lose the human element in those stories. I try to bring out the human element in those stories while still giving you the Christmas Demon or virtual reality world in my debut book and stuff like that.
So let's stay there. I'm really curious on the idea. Where did the idea come from for the Christmas Demon? Was it an inspiration? Was it just a crazy dream? Like, where did you walk outside at night one time and just have a crazy idea? Like, I want to hear, where did this spark come from?
I wish my stories came to me in dreams, man, but I very rarely dream, or at least very rarely remember my dreams. So, no help there. But um, no, it started with more with a mood and an atmosphere. I was dealing with some stuff at the time that just kind of had me down, just kind of had me in this dark headspace, and was just really really frustrated. And one of the ways that I try to work out my emotions is through writing, and so I just started writing these characters like in my head. I didn't even start typing or writing anything down. I just started having these characters in my head, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, they're going through something. It's a couple. They're going through something. They're dealing with each other. They're dealing with their own darkness and this, that, and the other. And I was like, well, okay, there's something there, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's something. I feel like I need to get this out. I feel like I need to get this down. There's something there. And then at the time, I saw that Amazon Vella was having some sort of competition or something, and I was like, well, I've never tried writing a serial before. Maybe I'll give that a try. And shortly after, Amazon Vella shut down, so I was like, oh well, gonna have to figure something else out now. But so that was the idea, just kind of this like serial little story. And I really don't remember how it turned into this like supernatural horror, but I'd always wanted to do a Krampus story after seeing the 2015 movie Krampus,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of being underwhelmed by it. And so I was like, okay, one of these days I'd like to do a Krampus story, but a bit more something that I would enjoy more. And I'm not sure how the two ideas kind of meshed together, but at some point I was writing The Christmas Demon and being like, okay, I'm writing about this family drama happening with Krampus.
Wow. So did you, from the beginning, did you know this was going to be a shorter story? Or did it kind of just turn into a shorter novella type of story?
Yeah, I knew it was going to be a shorter story because, again, at the time, Amazon Vella was like, it needs to be, I think they said 10 episodes or something like that, or 10 chapters, something along those lines. And I can't remember if that was like, it needs to be at least that long or that's the length it has to be. But that's how I kind of took it. That's the length it has to be. So I was like, okay, so I'm just going to get right into it and just, concentrate on the overall plot and not have too many, little subplots to worry about that would expand that to more of a novel length.
So you mentioned this was really two ideas formed into one. But the second part of your idea of bringing in Krampus in was after you watched the Krampus movie. What about that movie you did not like? So I've not seen that movie, but I'm just curious, what was it about that movie that you were like, it felt underwhelming to you, that you were like, hey, I need to do something with this?
Well, at the time when I watched it, I didn't really know that much about Krampus. So I was more, I guess it was more about like how it was presented in the film, how the character was presented in the film, and just kind of how the scary scenes were kind of built and how they were kind of shown and stuff like that. It just felt underwhelming. It was just like, I like the idea. Like, I like that there's this darker aspect to the Christmas story because you always get Santa, you always get this, that, and the other. But then, here's this demon of folklore that just came out of nowhere. For me, came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the movie, just wasn't all that suspenseful to me. It just wasn't all that scary. So I was kind of like, okay, well, that's kind of an interesting idea to have kind of a Christmas demon character maybe I could do something with that one day because I like a good creature feature, uh, something like that. And then I started reading up on Krampus and started doing some research on Krampus for the Christmas Demon, and he's a pretty interesting character. And the movie really did very, very little. I mean, even design wise, just didn't really look like Krampus to me. So I was just like, I need to be more respectful to the folklore while at the same time kind of bringing my own interpretive spin to it.
I think you did great. So we mentioned before that I was familiar with the Krampus before I read this novella. So I think you did very well with the source material. So I do want to give you a lot of props for that. You mentioned earlier that you thought about this a lot, just in your head before you decided to put pen to paper or keyboard to Word document, however you go through and type up your stuff. But I'm curious, from a outlining in your head, were you outlining the story tightly, like you knew, hey, here's all the beats you want to go through and do with this, or was it like, hey, here's just a fresh idea, let me just start filling this out organically? I know you had a kind of a time span of like about 10 chapters ish, but from a story beat perspective, I'm curious how your outline process looked like for that.
No, I didn't do a whole lot of outlining. I pretty much started with the characters, kind of started with the beginning chapter and them having car issues. And I was just trying to figure out, okay, how do I know I need to get them from, having some car issues to this, little town hidden away in the mountains. How do I do that? How do I figure that out? Well, what if a mysterious character suddenly appears and leads them through the woods? Well, okay, why would the family abandon the car and do this? And so, it was a lot of questions and answers. Like, okay, why would they do that? Well, maybe their cell phone isn't working. Yeah, kind of a horror movie cliche. Why would their cell phone not be working? Well, they are in the Bavarian Alps, and maybe a big snowstorm is coming, and so it just kind of started building on itself. And I would give vague outlines to each chapter, like, okay, story beat A needs to happen, which then leads to story beat B, which then leads to story beat C, stuff like that. But I wouldn't really flesh it out or anything like that because I like knowing where I'm going, but I don't like to know all the details beforehand. I kind of like to discovery write some of the details beforehand. So again, give me a vague roadmap and I'll take a look and go, okay, cool. So how do I connect A to B and B to C? And that's the challenge I like to give myself in the little discovery writing that I like to do.
Awesome. And is that your normal process? Is that something new for this? Pretty much, did you do the same thing for Virtual Rebel? You did the same kind of process?
It seems like with each book, the process kind of evolves a little. With Virtual Rebel, that started completely as a discovery writing project, kind of an experiment. I never really the novel that I kind of trashed and threw away. I had outlined it extensively. I had written like this big 60-page outline and was like, okay, so I know exactly what's going to happen. Just have to fill in the blanks, stuff like that. And then with Virtual Rebel, I kind of wanted to experiment more with discovery writing and wrote about 6 chapters and was like, okay, this is cool, but I don't really know where I'm going. I feel like I'm kind of like meandering a little. I need to tighten the focus, need to figure out where I'm going. So from chapter 6-ish onward, I started outlining kind of chapter by chapter, just saying like, kind of like what I was talking about with the Christmas Demon. Okay, I need A, B, and C to happen. All right, that's my outline. I need these three things to happen, these 2 things to happen, this 1 thing to happen, and then go from there. And so that's pretty much all I did with the Christmas Demon. It wasn't straight discovery writing, and it wasn't straight outlining either. It was just a little of both.
Okay. I want to lean in now to the book discussion. Again, non-spoiler related. If I start saying anything you feel is too spoilery or your answer is going to be too spoilery, just say read the book, and then we'll jump to the next question.
Right.
But I want to start with one of my favorite characters. There's really two, and I will talk about Krampus itself, the demon, because I really enjoyed that character. But another character that I really was drawn to was Sadie, and I'm really curious how you was able to go through and find that voice for Sadie. So Sadie is the daughter in the story. So she's the young character dealing with not only the same situations her parents are going through, but also she's seeing what's happening with her parents, and there's some animosity there. And she is in the midst of all this. So she's kind of the center point of the story. So I want to hear a little bit about how you came up with this character, how you gave them that voice that feels so grounded and real.
Well, I needed the character of Sadie because there had to be a reason that this couple stayed together, right? Because they were mentally, they had just kind of checked out with each other, and they were kind of at a breaking point with each other. The trip was kind of a last-ditch effort to kind of try to help things, try to fix things, try to do something. But Sadie was like their anchor, the thing that tied them both together. And knowing it was going to be a shorter story, I knew there wasn't going to be a lot that I could do with Sadie, so I had to really, really hone in and kind of highlight who she is and why she is. And for me, I just really drew from my own experience as a father and just having two young daughters and just trying to bring, as much as I could, an authenticity to Sadie, who is 6 years old, and her perspective and her understanding of the world and of her parents and stuff like that. She has she has an innocence to her that is very, very precious and definitely naive. But she's also got this perception too. She sees something is going on, but she's not quite sure what to make of it so far as her parents' relationship goes. But she's not quite sure what to make of it because, she's a child. She trusts them and loves them. And so I just had all that in my head. And then again, just my own experience with my own young daughters, and just tried to, as much as I could, bring that authenticity to the character of Sadie.
Awesome. Interesting. My second favorite character was the demon. I really enjoyed the demon character. And then there's another character that I cannot recall his name. I do apologize. The guy from the town, the older guy from the town.
Lucian?
I cannot remember his name. I really
Lucian?
liked his character. I'm sorry?
Lucian, right?
Lucian, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I really liked his character and that dynamic that they went through and had in that story. So I really enjoyed that. And I feel like I could have just followed just him during the story. He was one of those side characters. I'm like, whoa, I want more of that guy, which was very well done. But Krampus, or the demon, I really felt like he was very monstrous, but also conversational in the story. And I'm really want to pick your brain a little bit of how you went through and balanced the voice of this demon, because again, it was very terrifying. It was very manipulative within the whole story itself. And I'm really curious how you were able to lean into that sadistic type of storytelling.
The voices in my head, man. The voices in my head. No. Krampus, I needed Krampus to be interesting, and I didn't want him to be just like, an 80s slasher monster type character who's just strong and silent and there. That's menacing and that's frightening, but I needed him to have that kind of presence, but obviously he has a lot more dialogue. And so I was like, okay, well, he uses a type of telepathy to communicate with people, right? Mm-hmm. And that kind of gets around some of the language issues that could have been part of the story, but weren't. And so he has this type of telepathic conversations with a couple of the characters, and he's able to prey on their own insecurities, their own fears, their own darkness, right? And I'm a spiritual guy myself. I'm a Christian, so I do believe that angels and demons truly do exist, and I do believe that spiritual warfare is a thing. So I'm like, okay, well, if I were a demon and I could see into someone's soul and to see into someone's mind, that's what I would do. I would just start picking at those little things, those things that we tell ourselves every day that we're failures at, or that we're terrible at. I mean, I have a terrible inner voice. I'm all the time calling myself a moron or an idiot or something like that. And I think a lot of us do that, right? Mm-hmm. But this is a much bigger thing, much bigger than just a critical inner voice. This is someone that has found the character of Alan Mallory, their guilt, their addictions, and the motives behind that, and is really trying to drill down and manipulate them. And he does that in order to get a foothold over their mind, because that's where part of his power comes from, is being able to get inside their head, right? He's not just a physical presence. He's also that mental and spiritual presence as well. And I really wanted to kind of communicate the threat on all those levels with Krampus.
And I can honestly say, from reading the story, the mental torture he put these people through was way more terrifying as a parent than I feel like some of the physicality stuff that he was doing, which that was still it was terrifying, which I do want to ask questions about the sack that he used, the Christmas sack scene. I do want to talk about that in just a second. But I really I was in, because I'm a father as well. So the things that were going from Al's perspective when we were following his character at certain points of the story, I was really I was there with him. I was there with him when he was walking back from back to the hotel, where he was going through and hearing the screams, and I was with him. I could visually see that, be there and see it. Ellen asked, is it cinematic? It's 100% cinematic. You can feel the cold, you can see the scenery, you're in the town with these people, and the experience Al had to go through within this story was so intense. But while the screaming was going on, there was a sack scene that occurred. And I don't want to get too spoiler with it. But how did you get that? How did you decide to go through and write that? How were you able to go through and were you blaring hardcore music? Were you watching creepy stuff on TV and then was all right, I'm going to use some of that? Or was it just you went to that dark space in your brain and just here we're pulling it out?
Yeah.
Pulling it all out.
Yeah. It was the latter. I went to the dark space in my head and was okay, it's a sack of horrors. And, what is some of the most disturbing, disgusting stuff that I could think of, and it turns out I could come up with some pretty nasty stuff, and none of it was I had worse ideas that I kept out. I was okay, there's a certain level of darkness that I'm okay with this story, but some of it at the same time I was okay, that's a little too much. That's a little too much. So I had to pull it back a little bit. The idea for the sack just came from the idea of Santa Claus having a sack full of presents and, handing out presents to, the good little children and stuff like that. Whereas his twisted counterpart would have a sack full of tortures, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I think there is some folklore out there that has Krampus carrying either a basket or a sack where he puts the children that he snatches into.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably where the idea initially started. And then at the same time, the sack kind of had a funny, whimsical inspiration to it. I was thinking of Doctor Who's TARDIS and how, you know, it's bigger on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought up of a twisted version of that with the sack. So decided to twist a few things in this story.
Yeah, you did a few numbers on me. It was fun. For when you were going through writing the story, what was the most difficult part to write? Was it something technical to go through and write? Was it some of the emotional beats you had to put yourself through to be able to get it on paper? What was the most difficult part for you to write the story?
Actually, the difficult emotional beats were probably the easiest because that's the most that was something I needed to work through. That was something I needed to kind of get off my chest and onto metaphorical paper. So I was locked in and I was like, fingers were flying on the keyboard during those scenes. So much so that I actually had to cut some of that stuff out because beta reader feedback was like, you know, it's good to get to know the characters like that, but at the same time, it's really kind of taking away the momentum from the horror of the story. So I had to figure out how to communicate what I needed to with the characters, their history and their emotional state, without taking too long on it and slowing down the story too much, so it didn't take away from the horror and all that. The scene I probably had the most difficulty with, though, was when Al was confronting Krampus. He was trying to help Lucian, and he was confronting Krampus. That was probably the hardest one to pull off because I don't want to go into too much detail because it's an important character moment for Al. But Al has to do something very specific, and writing him doing that convincingly was hard. You know, I probably rewrote that scene the most out of all the scenes in there because it's one of the most important scenes in the book. I needed to get it right. And a lot of the reader feedback early on was like, this doesn't feel authentic. This doesn't feel completely... It feels like the plot is causing him to do this. And, you know, on the one hand, yeah, it was. But on the other hand, this was something he needed to do for his character, right? Mm-hmm. This was an important moment for his character. And again, don't want to get any more spoiler than that. So it took a lot of refining, rewriting, until finally the feedback was, it works. It works. And so that was a relief because there for a minute I was like, I may have to change what I'm going to do here because, you know, I keep getting this feedback, but eventually got it right. And I'm very happy and proud with how that scene turned out.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was a very good moment. Definitely for his arc. My unit shut off. Sorry. My unit shut off. I need to make sure it turned back on, or if not, I was going to freeze in here. Yeah, no, it was a fantastic moment, and the big thing what I felt with this story that there was so many times that I felt on the edge of my seat where I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was getting suffocated within the characters when they were getting deeper and deeper within this story. With it being a novella and being so short, how did you balance those moments where you want the tension to be there? Because it is a horror story and it is a terrifying moment, but also not suffocating your readers, because you balance it extremely well where you have those breathing moments and then you get right back into I'm being suffocated by greatness. So I'm really curious how you went through and balanced that. Was it beta readers or alpha readers, beta readers that really helped you with that, or was that something you worked on personally?
I I mean, I'd say a combination of just something that I worked on and got some good beta reader feedback. Uh, I had a couple of really good beta readers. I had, uh, 6 or 7 beta readers total, I think, and a couple of them were really able to give me great feedback, very important, needed feedback, and so that helped a lot. But at the same time, it was just. Um, I don't know, just kind of this internal compass, I guess, this internal gauge. And I was just trying to keep the story moving while giving what's expected of the genre. But at the same time, I don't really call myself a horror writer. I don't really. It's not the genre that I write in the most or anything like that. I've written a couple of other short horror stories. The Christmas Demon was the longest horror story I've ever written. It's fun for me to kind of play with that dynamic of tension and action, of revelation, of hiding certain things in the shadows, certain details in the shadows, when to reveal it to the audience, stuff like that. So it's just kind of me just playing with things and seeing what I enjoy with it.
Interesting. What kind of stories do you normally read as an adult?
All kinds of stories. I read an occasional Stephen King. Lately, been reading a lot of indie authors. Been reading some sci-fi, some fantasy, just a variety of things. I mostly stick with sci-fi and fantasy. Every once in a while, I'll creep into the thriller realm or the horror realm, but I don't read a whole ton of those. I enjoy more action, adventure-oriented stuff.
Okay. I ask because you stated horror's not a genre that you normally go after. That it's like you write some short stories here and there, but I'm not blowing smoke. This story was very well done, and it seems like you have so much love for the horror genre. When I went through and read it, I was like, "Oh, this guy's a horror guy." But hearing that you're like, "Ah, not really," it shocks me, to be honest, that it's not something that it's like, "Hey, I've a might not been the stories I wrote before, but hey, I got a lot of love for this genre." So I just find it very interesting.
I have a huge appreciation for horror. It's one of the few genres that can consistently get an emotional reaction from me.
Mhm.
Not every story that I read or watch anymore has that kind of an effect on me anymore. Why? There could be lots of reasons why, but horror can fairly consistently get a reaction from me. And one of the biggest reactions to a horror movie I ever had was The Conjuring.
Mhm.
That movie stayed with me and stayed in my head for weeks and weeks afterwards. I was, scared to go in dark hallways and stuff. Uh, and and I was really like studying the filmmaking of that movie as I was watching it, and just how James Wan, the director, built
Mhm.
tension through the visual storytelling that he was telling. And I was like, I wonder how I could do maybe something along those lines, but with the written word. And how do you translate that? How do you? And I don't fully know. That's part of the fun of writing something like the Christmas Demon, is you get to kind of play around and try to figure out, okay, what scares me personally, and how can I communicate that in the written word? Because writing for movies and writing for a novel are two completely different
Mhm.
things. But how do I get that feeling? How do I capture that feeling? And so with horror, I feel like I get to kind of play around and experiment with some techniques that I don't normally get to kind of play around and experiment with.
Mhm. Okay. That's awesome. Um, the ending. Did you go through and know before you started writing how it was going to end? Or was it one of those endings where you kind of was figuring out as you were going along with how it was going to end?
I was definitely figuring out as I went along. I remember at some point reaching the halfway point of the story and being like, I don't know what's going to happen. I really have no idea. There's certain kind of expectations of the horror genre. And I was like, do I want to fulfill those expectations? Do I want to subvert them? What do I want to do here? And ultimately, I come up with something that kind of, again, don't want to get into spoilers. So I'll just say this. There's a reason why I call this story like a dark fantasy / horror novella.
Mm-hmm.
It's structured very much like a horror story, but it doesn't necessarily give you everything that you expect in a horror story.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I also talk about it being a dark fantasy, because it also deals with like dark mythological folklore at the same time. And so want to kind of set those expectations of readers of those genres as best I can without spoilers. So, with the ending to The Christmas Demon, it had to ultimately be satisfying to me. I needed to write it in such a way that I'd be proud of, that I'd be satisfied with, and not really worry too much about genre expectations.
I've never seen. Have you seen Sinister?
I have not. No.
I've seen the trailer and I was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
No.
It's not that it looked bad. It's that I was like, I want to be able to sleep. So no.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go through and watch that. But I hear it's terrifying.
Yeah, I've heard many people say it's one of the most terrifying horror films of all time, and I'm like, I'm good, bro. I'm all right.
I will trust all of y'all's judgment that it's terrifying.
Exactly.
And then I think we're sold. Pretty sold on this novella. I'm not going to lie. I'm telling you, Lucas, it's fantastic. And it's a fun, quick read. I definitely couldn't put it down. And I was reading it in the living room over the fireplace, pitch black, perfect setting.
Oh, perfect setting. Yeah.
Very creepy sounds. It was amazing. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. So last question about the book specifics. What is your expectation? What are you hoping people feel after finishing this book? What feeling are you hoping people have?
A little bit of Christmas cheer.
All right.
No, it's more of a. I mean, you were talking earlier about something that kind of got me thinking. You were talking about how what really drove home some of the horror to you was kind of being in Al's head and kind of dealing with, being with him in the woods, hearing the screams, stuff like that, and the thoughts rushing through his head. And that was something that I wanted the horror to be relatable. It's supernatural, and some people aren't scared by the supernatural. I am, but some people aren't. So I'm like, okay, how can I still make this relatable for folks that aren't freaked out by the supernatural? And so Al, being a father, dealing with the situation that he's dealing with, the thoughts going through his head and all that sort of stuff kind of ground the story and kind of really drive home a relatable sense of dread and horror, in my opinion. So I want readers to feel that. I want readers to feel that sense of dread, that sense of tension, that sense of like, oh my gosh, this is a freaky situation. What's going to happen next? But at the same time, the book, again, don't want to go into spoilers, doesn't end on a completely depressing, hopeless note. I know a lot of horror stories do that, and I just couldn't do that. So the ending is satisfying. It's not necessarily the happiest of endings, but it's a satisfying one, and I think it's one that ends on hope. And I really wanted, first and foremost, as a storyteller, I just want to take the reader on a ride, right? I want to take you on this roller coaster ride, this amusement park ride. You're going to go up, you're going to go down, you're going to get jerked this way, that way. all this kind of stuff. I want you to have an emotional ride, but at the end, I want you to walk away satisfied. And with the Christmas Demon, have a little bit of that sense of Christmas hope. Maybe it's not a Hallmark ending, but you get a little bit. It's not a completely downer of an ending either. So,
No, I agree. I thoroughly enjoyed the ending. It was great. We have another legend in the house, a horror legend, Mr. Fitz himself. How's it going, Sean?
Hey,
need to jump into his second book, hoping to get to that next month. I think is the plan. I think December for me is going to be no book ones. It's all have to be 2, 3, or 4. It's just like there's been way too many series I started this year that I'm like, I'm going to get back to this, and then I'm just like, I'm running through these, and I'm like, there's so many series behind me. I'm like, I need to read more. So those are the ones I think I'm gonna jump into Alone Together 2 probably next month. So it should be fun. All right, we are at the lightning round. So anyone that's not familiar with the lightning round, I'm gonna go through and ask about 9 to 10 random, very quick questions. There's no thinking with these. So first thing that comes to your head makes it easy enough. All right, you all ready?
All right. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Scariest holiday movie.
Scariest holiday movie. It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay. Interesting. We're going to come back to that. I'm really curious on that one. All right. Would you rather face one giant demon or 100 tiny ones?
How tiny are we talking?
Like, let's say miniature action figures, like the soldiers, like the little soldiers when we were kids.
Okay, definitely some miniature ones. I'm not a gym rat. I haven't really built up my physique or anything like that, but I've got some good stomping shoes. I think I can handle that.
Okay, I like it. Oh, okay. Now we're getting into the specifics. How giant? Let's say the mountain from Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah, no.
From Game of Thrones.
No.
With demon. So like a bear size. Or little action figures, but 100 of them you got to go through and take care of. So
I think I could take care of the action figures.
Ro, I know. I didn't see you jump on Ro. Yeah, we're going to need specifics because it might be a different story than I went through and saw. And then Trinity's here. What's up, Trinity? All right, so let's jump back into these. All right, what is creepier? Clowns or dolls?
Dolls.
Dolls. Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely the kinds that the eyes follow you to. Have you seen one of those? Those are not fun.
No, yeah.
What is your favorite fantasy trope that you would never want to see again? So pretty much what's your least favorite fantasy trope?
Least favorite fantasy trope. Gosh. The king ascends the throne.
Okay. One word that best describes a Christmas demon.
One word that best describes the Christmas demon. The book or the actual Christmas demon?
The book.
Scabby. It's a little scabby.
Scabby. Like it. All right. If you got thrown into the world of the Christmas demon, would you survive one night?
Ooh. Maybe. If Lucian was around, maybe. I would pray Lucian would be around.
Okay. Realistically, I wouldn't make it.
I mean, I wouldn't give myself good chances on it, but if Lucian were around, maybe I'd have a chance.
If I was a betting person, I would say I would not make it. I would not make it. All right. When you're reading, so when you're going through and taking in a story, do you prefer paperback, hardback, or ebook?
Well, lately I've been getting into ebooks. Just the convenience and ease of use of ebooks has been great, but my favorite is audiobooks. I love, like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Dungeon Crawler Carl, but if you ever get into that series, or whatever, just listen to the audiobooks. Jeff Hayes, MVP.
I cannot agree more. I cannot agree more. I am doing a buddy read for Dungeon Crawler Carl, and we've been meeting every month to go through. And I think we are on book 6.
Nice.
We're on book 6, so we're going to be going through that one and talking about that one in like a week or two, the 16th, so in about 10 days. So it should be loads of fun to go through and ramble about that story. But yes, I agree, and that's how I'm listening to it. Is
best way to do it.
Yeah. What is your favorite book you read this year?
Oh, favorite book I've read this year. Okay. Give me 2 seconds. I know this isn't lightning round. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I got one more hard one for you.
All right. I've been keeping track of some of them.
Are you a Goodreads tracker, or do you use like Excel?
No, I actually use a little app called Vero. Just a little social media app, and I got on there years ago, and there's a feature where you can keep track of the books you read, and so that's what I've been doing. Starship Troopers was actually pretty good. It was a book I read this year, and I was pleasantly surprised by.
Oh wow!
But there's been several indie author books I've read this year too that have been really good. That I've just Sledge, that was a good one. That one really grabbed me by the throat and wouldn't let go. Spectral Braver, that was another good one that I read this year. Let's see, there was another one. I'm terrible at lightning rounds. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but there's been like several indie author books this year that have been really, really good that I've enjoyed.
Awesome. I need to read Starship Troopers. I watched a movie long time ago. Haven't seen it recently, so I don't know if it holds up. But it's one of those movies where I go, I don't know if I want to rewatch it because my memory of it is here, and I feel like if I actually watch it, it's going to be way down here. So
I think it still holds up. It's a lot of fun. A lot of people kind of debate the satirical elements of it. That's pretty popular on X right now. I was talking about the satirical elements of it. Does not work, whatever. I have fun with it. The book's very different, and I enjoyed that.
All right, I'm getting trashed. I will read the book. I also haven't read Fight Club. I've not read that book yet, and I've not read Shutter Island. So I will add this one to my list of great movies that I need to read the books.
Yeah, I've only seen the movies of those two. I haven't read the books either.
Oh, we're getting a bunch of people saying it's good. All right, I will go through. I will make sure I read that one. All right, so this is the last question for the lightning round. I ask this to every single author that's on, and I'll tell you why after I ask the question. Right. If the Christmas Demon had a theme song, what would it be? And you can take as much time as you need to go through and think of a theme song.
A theme song? I don't know about a theme song, but a piece of music that immediately comes to mind when I think of the Christmas Demon. Are you familiar with the Emperor's theme in Star Wars?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of something that runs through my head when I see the Christmas Demon, something like that. Just kind of dark vocals.
Oh my goodness, this is awesome. All right, so what I do with this information is I have anyone that's not familiar that's on the chat also or rewatching it. I created a Spotify playlist of every author I interviewed. I asked every single person the same question, and I add it to the Spotify playlist.
Yeah.
So what I find hysterical for me is the wide variety of music. So if you shuffle it, it goes all over the place with some of the music. So to add in the Emperor's theme song into this amazing set of authors picks, I'm going to be giggling. So I'll make sure I toss it into the description after this discussion. So if anyone's interested to go through and listen to this madness, it's like an hour and 40 minutes worth of
nice.
Random songs. So it's great. I'm just going to keep building on it and make it longer and longer. It just brings back great memories. So it's fun.
Yeah, for real. That's awesome.
Fun stuff. All right, so I appreciate you doing the lightning round. That was fun.
Yeah.
I always have fun with those of trying to figure out some goofy questions to go through in that. So before we continue,
Yes.
It's a Wonderful Life. Explain. I feel like there's a bunch of us on here that's really curious on that answer, and then we'll get into some of my other questions I have for you.
Well, I'm afraid it's going to be a little bit disappointing in that I first saw It's a Wonderful Life as a kid, and I was a pretty sensitive kid. So the scene at the end when Clarence is showing Jimmy Stewart's character what life would have been like in the town had he not been born. There's a part where he's like, kind of freaking out, and he like runs in camera, and he like runs into frame, and he's like right there in front of the camera, and he's just like got this wild look in his eyes. And as a little kid, I was kind of freaked out by that. I was like, he's gonna run out of TV.
All right.
So, again, you said don't use your brain. I didn't use my brain. That was just
I brought back trauma from as a child back.
Brought back, that
face into the screen, and you were like, "Oh, that's the scariest Christmas movie I've ever seen." Awesome. Oh, that's good. That's funny. That's really funny. So, hypothetically, you have all the money, you have all the power in the world to adapt a Christmas demon. What is your dream medium? Would it be film? Would it be series? Would it be a graphic novel, a video game? What kind of adaptation would you like to go through and do for the Christmas demon?
Well, one day I would love to turn it into a graphic novel. I think it'd be a great graphic novel. And it's probably the more achievable dream or idea that I have compared to if I had all the money and power in the world, I'd turn it into a big theatrical, release, just turn it into this big budget, $100 million movie, and just have it open in theaters and just make this big, have it come out, I don't know, maybe between Halloween and Christmas, something like that, where you can kind of cash in on both holidays. Mm-hmm. And yeah, let's go big. Let's make the Christmas Demon big.
So Trinity also thinks that Virtual Rebel will be cool as a graphic novel.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
That could be double up for your Kickstarter. So there you go, Kickstarter, both of them, 2 for 1, let's knock them both.
It's definitely something I've got in my head, and an idea that I've got turning in my head. Got to build up a bit more of an audience first. Got to build up a bit more demand for it first. But that's something that I would love to do because, as a visual guy, in the way I write, being more cinematic, I think both books would translate perfectly to be a graphic novel.
Mm-hmm. So the film, have you thought about who would play each character? So we got Sadie, Al, Mallory, and then who would voice Krampus? Have you thought about any of that?
I haven't thought too much about it, just because, at this time it's not a very realistic idea. I haven't given it too much thought, but gotta have Danny DeVito as Al, right? You gotta have Danny DeVito in everything, or it's just not a good movie.
Yeah.
Krampus. Who could do the voice of Krampus? That is a good question, because the way I imagine Krampus's voice would bear some similarities to how the guy that played Voldemort in the Harry Potter movies kind of did his voice.
Oh, okay.
What was his name? What's the actor's name? Very well-known actor. Fiennes. Ralph Fiennes? Ralph Fiennes, however you say his last name.
Joseph Fiennes?
Joseph Fiennes? I thought it was Ralph. There's two Fiennes. There's Joseph and there's Ralph. I don't know which one played Voldemort.
Ralph.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was Ralph. Yeah.
Ralph. And then Rose said Kelsey Grammer, the guy from Frasier.
Kelsey Grammer's got a good voice.
Mm-hmm.
He might could do a good Krampus. I don't know. You'd have to play with the audio a little bit for Krampus because he's kind of got this, again in my head, this kind of quiet, yet deep, yet soft, yet kind of hissing voice. And it's just got this, very uncanny quality to it that just gets under your skin.
See, I was thinking when I was reading it, in my mind, it was Keith David was the person who was.
Keith David's got a great voice.
That was who I was thinking as whose Krampus voice would be, because I can feel like definitely there was parts I'm like, oh, he would be laughing here, and it was like I could just hear his laugh in my head, and I'm like, this is perfect. So that was who was in my head. I was just curious.
No, that's a great idea. I'd love to hear Keith David do some readings and see if it worked. Again, he's got a great voice. Even if Keith David was the only one that would be interested in doing it, that'd be, not a terrible thing.
Yeah, I think he could do. Yeah, I think he would do fantastic with this story. So let's make some calls. Ro, I know you know some people. Ro knows people. Ro, make some calls. I think we're what is it? I say this like every few lives that I'm on. Is it 7 Degrees from Kevin Bacon? I never look it up because I think it's comical that I can never remember it. So I'll look it up now. 7 Degrees, is that what it's called?
I don't know.
7 Degrees with Kevin Bacon. Yes. So we're 7 people away from getting to where we want to go. So yeah, we're 7 degrees away. So let's make it happen. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen. I'm excited. Yep. Ro knew. He hears me messing up all the time. 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. So I'm interested now on, is there any kind of new genre, since horror is kind of new for you, definitely, longer than your short stories you've done before. Is there a new genre you want to go after? Is there a new theme or new style? I'm really curious because it seems like you can really do almost anything. So I'm curious what's next for you.
Well, I definitely like experimenting and trying new things. I tell folks that I write sci-fi fantasy. That's the big umbrella that I write under. But underneath it, you've got all these subgenres, right? And so I like to explore the different subgenres under that big sci-fi fantasy umbrella. And so my current work in progress is actually, believe it or not, a cozy fantasy.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a genre that or a subgenre that I've recently discovered. I've read a couple of books in. There's actually a series that I enjoy that is an ongoing cozy fantasy series. And I like it. It's very chill. It's very, you get to know the characters really well. You get to have fun with them and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to see if I can write a bit of a lighter story. Virtual Rebel, it's not a super dark story, but kind of had these dire, got to save the world type stakes going on with the Christmas Demon. It's a little darker, a little heavier, a little more, you got to do these things to save your soul type thing. And so I was like, okay, let's see if I could do something a little lighter. Let's see if I could do something a little more cozy, a little more chill.
Okay. Interesting. And is that going to be a standalone, or are you going to try to lean into a series as well?
It's probably going to be a standalone, unless there's demand for more. It's definitely a world that could have tons of different stories in it, so it would be very, very easy to write a sequel for it. But at this time, I'm mostly planning on having it be a standalone. Yeah.
So you mentioned you're reading a cozy fantasy series. Is it is it Legends and Lattes, or are you reading a different series?
Different series. It's called, if I remember right, Beers and Beards, and it's about dwarves, and it's kind of got a little bit of a lit RPG thing going on, but it's about dwarves in another world who are having to perfect their beer recipe for this great game that the gods are playing in the universe and stuff like that. So it's kind of quirky, kind of odd, kind of funny at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, and it looks like there's 3 books in the
Mhm.
series now. Cool. I've not heard of this one. And it's a big chunker too. It's a big one. It's a big one. Book
Yeah.
1 shows 680 pages.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm again doing the audiobooks for those and really enjoying the narrator.
Okay. I'm going to need to go through and check this out. Beers and Beards.
Yep.
Cool. Have you read Legends and Lattes?
No, I
Or
read
listened?
the prequel though, the Bookshops and Bone Dust.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was all right. It wasn't my favorite, but I thought it was entertaining, and it was, you know, it gave exactly the kind of feeling that you wanted from it. But I so far am enjoying Beers and Beards a bit more.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I've read the first one. I've read Legends and Lattes. I started the prequel. I think it's a prequel. I think it's
I
supposed to
think,
be
yeah,
before, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I started it, and then I just didn't continue with it for some reason. There was something else that I was also reading at the same
yeah,
time. So I kind of just put that down to finish this other book and just haven't gone back to it yet. But it's one of those stories. It's like you can go through and do that. It's like, okay,
yeah,
I'm kind of, I could pick this up whenever and it'll be fine.
very
Cool.
easily. Yeah.
I need to go through and pick up Beers and Beards. That sounds cool. In the path that you are now, I'm really curious about this because something I'm always interested in myself is setting up goals for myself. For you as a writer, what are some of your goals? And it could be next year, it could be next 5 years, it could be 20, 30 years, whatever kind of goals, if you do have any. What are some goals for you as a writer?
Well, one day I would love to be doing this as my full time job. You know, that would be a lot of fun. I feel like I'm quite a bit away from that. It's going to take some time to get there. Um, so that's not an immediate goal, but I'm trying to take what steps I can to reach that goal. And, um, you know, I'm trying to broaden my experience with writing different subgenres under the sci-fi fantasy umbrella, so I can, you know, just so I have a bit of a range, you know, and just kind of also self-discover what I enjoy writing the most, you know. And so far, uh, sci-fi and with Virtual Rebel, and then the horror with Christmas Demon has been a lot of fun. And so with this cozy fantasy that I'm working on, it's interesting to try and kind of push myself in that a very different direction in terms of, you know, stakes, and in terms of like how you connect with the characters and stuff like that. And then I'm always trying to improve my writing too. You know, a lot of that is self-discovery as well. Just kind of, so far with every book that I've written, which is, you know, granted only 2 published, 1 unpublished, there's always this light bulb moment where a concept or a technique that I've heard about and never like fully understood how to implement it, never fully understood how to use it, something clicks at a certain point, and I'm like, oh, that's how, okay. And then, you know, at whatever point I am in the book, I'll finish from that point, and then go back with that, you know, little light bulb moment and kind of redraft with what I just figured out how to do. Because again, you know, somebody somewhere once said that when you're first starting a storytelling journey, whether it's visually through film or whatnot, or through books, your tastes are up here, right? But your abilities are, you know, somewhere down here, and you're trying to hit that, but your abilities are down here, not because you've got bad taste, but because you just don't have the experience, and you don't have all the techniques, and you don't have the come together moment for everything that you've learned to always be hitting the level up here. So I always try to keep that in mind when writing, because I'm always trying to deliver the best to my abilities, right? But there's always something else for me to learn. There's always something else for me to figure out too. So, all that rambling to say, I'm trying to get better with every book.
Yeah, awesome. So for those that are on the fence on if they want to go through and read this book, do you have a final pitch that you want to go through and try to convince someone to go through and read The Christmas Demon?
Yeah, it's super short. It's less than 100 pages, so you're going to get through it pretty quick. And you get a complete story in that amount of time. It's almost like watching a movie. It's going to be just 2, maybe 3 hours, depending on your reading speed. And you're going to get through it. You're going to get a complete story. You're going to get beginning, middle, and end. And you're going to get a satisfactory ending. The characters go through a journey. They go through an arc. And yeah, it gives you what you want from a story, just in a shorter amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And it looks like Trinity did go through and get herself a copy today. Awesome, Trinity. Appreciate it.
Hope you enjoy.
Yeah, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts once you go through and read it. Characters were fantastic. So even less than 100 pages, the story was great. It was horrific, exactly what you want from a horror book, but also characters that you can relate with. And that's what I really do appreciate with, regardless of the size of the novel or the story, having characters you can go through and not just understand, but really connect with, that you see part of yourself in with them. Maybe not 100%, but something. You understand what they're going through, and it really pulls you into their experience, and that's what you get out of this. So I really do appreciate you writing this and letting me go through and reading it for us to yap about it today. I had a great time, so I really do appreciate you coming on, man.
Well, yeah, and I appreciate you reading it and wanting to bring me on. It was great. I enjoyed it.
Perfect. Well, thanks again, and everyone that's in the chat. Thank you so much for joining. And again, go through and check out The Christmas Demon or any other stories that JC is going to go through and put out in his long writing future, because I feel like you're going to be writing for a very, very long time, man. So just keep it up. You're doing great. And I cannot wait for this cozy fantasy and then whatever other kind of chaos you're going to go through. So thank you, everyone, for watching. Don't forget to stay overbooked and go through and check out The Christmas Demon. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. Have a good one. All right. Bye.